Hey guys, it's Luke here at Gramophone. Today, I'd like to welcome you back to the next episode of AudioU. And in case you're new here, AudioU is a segment where we break down bigger concepts in audio into a form that newcomers can understand. And basically, if you want to get into this hobby, these are always a great place to start. And today's topic, yeah, you guessed it, is going to be turntables. And we're going to break down the basics of what makes certain turntables different from others, as while these all ultimately do a very similar thing, which is of course play vinyl records, there's different means of doing that through a couple different designs. Before we get into it though, let me tell you what I have on the table that will be serving as our examples for today. This is the Project Debut Pro, this is the EAT B Sharp, and this is the Macintosh MT5. So moving on, let's get into these categories, but right quick, don't forget to subscribe to the Gramophone channel and click that bell icon. All right, first topic, turntable tone arms. In this tone arm, it can be built of a couple different things. If you look at the project here, you'll notice that this is carbon fiber, at least on the outside. This is actually an aluminum sleeved in carbon fiber. It makes for a very light but very sturdy arm. And then you get into some more important differences, you might say, when you get into the actual mechanism of the tone arm in the back here. Here you have your cueing lever, which is how you slowly, gently drop the cartridge onto the table. Back here, you have sometimes a couple different adjustments based on the table. Do you see this little weight dangling here? That weight is a simple means of adjusting anti-skate on the arm. It's essentially a fancier way of addressing left and right movement in the tone arm. Now, one thing you may notice on the EAT as well, you have a larger counterweight in the rear here. This is a major part of the tone arm. Again, adjusting to ensure that your arm doesn't just pop up all the time, but that it can stay down and track the record. But you want to get that right because you don't want to be too light, but you don't want to be too heavy. The anti-skate adjustment is actually built into the arm's mechanism itself. Depending on your perspective, can be a little bit easier to set up, but the Project handles that a little bit more simply. And then moving on to the Macintosh, you can see this starts to get quite sophisticated. You have a very large cueing mechanism, and this one runs the smoothest of all. You have some anti-skate adjustments here on the side. Your counterweight is even more finely adjustable with a knob that you can tighten and unscrew here to give you better, finer control of where exactly the position of that is. And this whole arm just feels like a tank. It's not to say that these arms aren't quality. They absolutely are. But as you can expect, going from a $1,000 turntable to a $2,500 turntable to a $6,000 turntable, surely you can expect some differences. Tone arms are most important because they have probably the second highest impact in the overall sound quality of the turntable. I'd say the cartridge comes first, but that cartridge to an extent can only be as good as what it's riding on. Speaking of cartridges, let's move on to topic number 2. Cartridges. This is the part of your turntable that directly interfaces with your vinyl record. That action is precisely why turntables have the charm that they do. On the Project and on the EAT, these are both moving magnet. Moving magnet cartridges work by taking this little needle, we call it a stylus. The way that it's translating that information is through a magnet moving within a magnetic field. And the little electronic leads back here are measuring that movement. And that's ultimately how we get a signal. It's also why turntables are considered purely analog devices. There's nothing digital going on here. Rather, that movement just causes a difference in electrical strength and quality. That's basically what analog is. The other type, such as what's featured on the Macintosh, is called a moving coil. That stylus still follows the same principle of moving with the grooves in the record, but in a moving coil cartridge, up in here, inside that cartridge, that stylus is connected to a coil. And as that coil is moved by the stylus, so is its movement measured and the music produced. You can have more affordable moving magnets, more expensive moving magnets. Moving coils on average tend to start at a higher price than moving magnets, but again, the same rule applies. Because these are similar but ultimately different methods of building a cartridge, they do behave differently in terms of the electronics involved. Electrically, they are different. Differences in signal level and things like impedance and some of that other electrical engineering stuff that goes into building any of this stuff, you have to account for those differences. The thing to keep in mind about all of this in this world of turntables is that really, to an extent, almost everything is some degree of being customizable. Say you buy a table and overall you like it, but you're wondering if a better cartridge might do something for your sound, which it very well may. You can simply change out the cartridge. But where it really matters, at least for you as a new end user, getting into this hobby, getting into turntables, where it really matters as far as hooking your system up goes, is in our next category. That is Phono Stages. Why do Phono Stages, whatever form they take, why do these exist? Literal sound is being made by the stylus in the cartridge rubbing into the grooves of the vinyl that you're playing. Turntables, because they operate at such a quiet level, they need more than just one stage of amplification. We take that little phono whisper, and then we boost it up to what's called line level. That's where your preamp normally works. And then that gets sent down to your power amp. And then the power amp takes that up to a level of power that your speakers can make nice and loud. And if you guys look at the back of this, and this would be true of different kinds of Phono Stages, inboard, outboard, whatever, you'll see that there is an input for moving magnet and moving coil. Not all Phono Stages do both. This one, very nice, does. And then you'll connect the output into one of the just regular analog ends on your preamp, your integrated, your receiver, whatever. You know, the good old red and white RCA. Phono Stages come in a couple different implements. The first type is called an inboard Phono Stage, or you might just say built-in, meaning it is literally built into the table itself. You can just use that, not have to worry about it down the road. Next, you have the inbuilt Phono Stage, but the kind that is in your preamp, or in your integrated amp, or in your receiver, whatever front end you're using for your audio electronics. Lastly, you have outboard Phono Stages, and this is where you get into some serious stuff. This one is by Thorns. It's just a little Phono Stage. You can get bigger ones than this, sometimes smaller. Something that I should mention about Phono Stages, but as long as that prefix of phono is in there, you know it's for turntable use. So that's enough about phonos for now. That's pretty much everything you need to know about how they work. So let's move on to our last category. That's going to be motors and drive types. Think like engines and transmissions, but for turntables. Here I have two belt drive turntables, and the Macintosh is a little bit unique as it's kind of like a direct drive, but a little bit different because this actually uses a magnetic bearing. In a way, this platter almost kind of floats. It's very cool. So on the EAT here, if I take the platter off, you can see that on this spindle, you have a belt, which is going back to a spindle connected to your motor, which is mounted right here. If I change where this belt is located, I can change the speed of the turntable. And that is generally, with a few exceptions, how you manipulate speed on a belt drive turntable. This table, for example, is good for both 33 and 45. And in case you hear that and you're wondering, well, how do these different speeds work? That number is RPM, revolutions per minute. And while this doesn't necessarily apply to just one style of table, you might see it a little less often on belt drive, but there are belt drives that do have this too. You'll find a knob, such as what you see on the Macintosh, or just a simple switch to vary the speed of the motor, which of course makes speed changing really convenient. There are others that claim direct makes for a better table because they tend to have more torque, be more robust, and you don't have to worry about ever changing a belt. Case by case, there are some incredible examples of belt drive turntables, some incredible examples of direct drive, and then some one-offs like the Mac that use their unique magnetic system, which is really good too. The most important thing to keep in mind when it comes to anything in this hobby is to have fun while shopping for this kind of thing and while learning about it. Whether it's a moving coil or a moving magnet, or it's belt drive, or it's direct drive, enjoy this. Have fun experimenting, listening, beginning to understand what you really like. Buy the best that's within your means that meets those preferences you're developing. And the only way you're really gonna find that out, good old experimentation. So on that note, if you know what turntable you wanna get for yourself, head on over to skybygramophone.com. We've got a wide selection from many different manufacturers. And don't forget, call one of our showrooms and come in. And you, of course, can find us in Timonium, Columbia, and Gaithersburg, Maryland. We also have a lovely kitchen design center in Hunt Valley, too. All right, y'all, thanks so much for watching this video. This AudioU content, I think that it has the potential to be really valuable. Please let me know if you think so, too. Do you like this more education-focused style content? Was this helpful for you today? Please let me know down in the comments section. Appreciate you guys. Be seeing you.